may be.
I'm so
But,
sorry, I forgot to start the recording earlier.
No worries. But, you know, as I may have mentioned when we talked last time, during the impeachment trial, it was a similar dynamic in the sense that I knew that we weren't going to get 2/3 of the senators to convict. That was very unlikely. But we were making the case before two juries. One was the senators, but the other, I think the more important jury was ultimately the American people. And I used to say to my fellow managers, we're speaking to the 4 and the 40 million. The 4 senators we thought may have an open mind. The 4 Republican senators we thought may have an open mind, and the 40 million Americans that we estimated had an open mind. And I still think that's true. I don't think it's the case that the whole country has made up its mind about what the former president did and how he tried to do it and all those who were involved. I think the facts still do matter to a great many Americans. And the most that we can do is bring them to light, use them to inform legislation to try to protect the country going forward, and then count on the voters to hold accountable those that don't.
So do you see in this age, like we were all glued, to the trial of OJ, and do you see anything like that? And Watergate, do you see people being riveted, or are people just tired of the pandemic and tired of politics and you think they might tune out?
I found during the Ukraine hearings, during the impeachment trials, most of the country paying pretty close attention.
Okay.
And I would imagine that when we begin to hold public hearings, it will certainly be my recommendation that we do so in prime time, not usually when we hold congressional hearings, so that we can provide good information to as much of the public as we can. And now, what we noticed during the impeachment trial, the first one in any event, was Fox was telling its viewers before the trial, when they thought that the team of Alan Dershowitz and Kenneth Starr and all these other people was going to be this, this all-star team, they were going to cover the trial from beginning to end and everything in between. Well, they soon decided actually they didn't want their viewers to see much of the trial when they saw what the trial was actually looking like. So they cut away from the trial, or they put it in a small box on the lower right-hand corner of the screen with the sound off, while Tucker Carlson and company mocked those of us engaged in the trial. So look, we're not going to break through the Fox bubble, but there are lots of people that don't live fully in that world or at all in that world that we still need to reach.
All right, great to see you again, Congressman Schiff, and thank you. So I want to fill that out if anybody has any follow-up questions on what we've just discussed. If you can raise your hand right now. Abali?
There. Greetings from Southern California, Congressman Schiff.
Hello.
I had a question about where we go from here. Given the Supreme Court that we have, given that voting rights legislation seems to be stalled, how are we going to act to protect the upcoming vote in the midterms and subsequent elections? Is it going to be, do we keep pressing for legislation at the federal or even the state levels? Is it going to be through litigation, community organizing, whether that's voting rights or turn out the votes or registration drives? Where do we put our energy and our efforts?
Thank you for the question. I'm not giving up on a federal legislative path, but neither am I counting on it. We're going to keep trying, but we cannot place our reliance on that given the difficulties. And so I think there really has to be a grassroots effort in every state to protect the right to vote. In some cases, that will be helping people overcome the new legislative hurdles that have been put in their way. I was talking to Joaquin Castro, my colleague from Texas, and he was telling me as of a couple of weeks ago, they were turning away tens of thousands of requests for absentee ballots because people who voted by absentee are no longer allowed to. And so he was seeing very demonstrably the effect of these efforts at disenfranchisement. So we're going to have to mobilize to make sure that that everyone can vote. That if there are new ID requirements, that we help people get new ID. That whatever is put in their way, we help people overcome. We're also going to need to come to the defense of these local and statewide elections officials who are being run out of their posts, some who are being campaigned against, others who are being threatened with death threats. They need to be defended. It was not just Democrats in Congress opposing these efforts to overturn the election, but a lot of local Republican elections officials and nonpartisan elections officials who did their job and refused to be intimidated or coerced. So I really think that that grassroots effort is going to be the most important. There will also be litigation challenging some of these laws. There are some good online organizations that you all can get involved with to help fight voter suppression and voter subversion so that you don't have to travel all around the country to do it. But I would put that as a very top priority. I'm the National Battleground Finance Chair for the House Democratic members. So I'm trying to make sure that we do everything possible to hold the House. If Kevin McCarthy were to become Speaker, he will overturn the election. He would have overturned the last one. So I view that also as part of our duty to protect our democracy, is making sure that the majority is controlled by a responsible party. And right now, there's only one of those.
And Mom Sense has a follow-up question on that. If she's there.
I wanted to let you know that we've been supporting two organizations. One is Voces de la Frontera, and they're doing voter registration with the Latinx community in Wisconsin. And we've given them quite a bit of money, and we're doing fundraising for them. Also, Four Directions. It's an organization that is doing voter registration, GOTV with the Native American populations in 4 states. And they've recently teamed up with Stacey Abrams' group. So we've been very involved as a small little group in raising how much money, Water Girl? We're really working hard to support groups that need the support. So
Right. So
Fantastic.
we approached them and said, okay, if we could raise 25,000 for the native vote in Michigan, could you find us a double match? So then we raised 30, they double matched that got them 90. We did the same thing in Arizona and Georgia and Wisconsin. So
That is fantastic.
we're
Fantastic.
trying to kind of micro target where we think it might help the most.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, so Casey, you have a question. We don't lip read, but
Unmute, please.
Unmute.
Sorry,
Casey.
sorry. Okay, I've unmuted.
It was your rehearsal.
Yeah, one of them has already kind of been answered, but, and the other one might be beyond Representative Schiff's purview, but I'll ask it anyway. I don't know how much communication there is between the various branches of government, the co-equal branches of government, but I was wondering if you had any indication at all as to whether and how the DOJ will act on the January 6th commission findings.
I really don't. There is I think, popular misnomer that the Justice Department is somehow waiting for Congress to act or to make a criminal referral before it will do something. That's not how the DOJ operates. I spent almost 6 years with the department. They don't wait for us. More often, they will ask us to wait for them. when they're concerned that there are witnesses that we're interviewing that they want to interview and they don't want conflicting testimony. So it may very well be that we make referrals to the department. And certainly we already have with respect to people who have been in contempt of us. My concern is, while on the one hand, they seem to be aggressively going after those who participated in the attack or organized it or funded it, there were a whole host of other lines of effort to overturn the election. And I don't see much indication that those are being investigated. And the one that stands out most to me is the former president being on the phone with Brad Raffensperger, asking him to find 11,780 votes that don't exist. I think if any of us on this call had been on that phone and recorded saying the things Donald Trump did, we'd be under investigation. And I don't think the department is waiting for us to uncover the full facts in Georgia. And I don't think they're waiting for the Fulton County District Attorney, because I can tell you also from my experience in Los Angeles as an assistant U.S. attorney, the Justice Department doesn't defer to a local DA's office on a case of national significance. I think that what's happening is that they've decided that they don't want to handle an investigation that hot involving the former president. They don't want to look backward. And while I understand the desire to keep the department out of that kind of controversy, the reality is that if the department took a position for 4 years that you can't prosecute a sitting president, and it now takes the position that as a practical matter, you also can't prosecute a former president, then the president becomes above the law. And that's not something the founders would have ever subscribed to. That's not something I think we can subscribe to. I hope that they will investigate any credible allegation of criminality on anyone's behalf, including the former president.
And so relating to both the timing of whatever the DOJ is doing and what the House committee is doing, H in Tennessee, I'm assuming is in Tennessee, just has a question about the timing of the process.
So I guess my question was, it seems as though Washington moves far more slowly than opinion out here in the greater United States, or perhaps the blogosphere, or perhaps the liberal blogosphere. I wondered if you would comment on how that seeming lag happens within, the Washington politosphere and reality. Over.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't know where you are in Tennessee, but if you're in Jim Cooper's district, you are losing a great representative. He's announced he's retiring, I think probably influenced by the gerrymander in Tennessee, which is a terrible shame.
Sadly, no. Representative Desjardins is my man.
Oh, geez. Well, in terms of the pace, I will say this about our committee. Our committee, by congressional standards and by most other standards, has moved with incredible rapidity. In a matter of months, we've interviewed over 400 people and obtained tens of thousands of documents. And we've done that over the vigorous opposition of the former president. And the Republicans in Congress. So most Republicans, I say, because there are at least a couple very notable exceptions in Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. So we move very quickly. But in terms of other agencies, I can appreciate the concern. For example, is this an issue with the Department of Justice, so they're just moving slowly? Or is this an issue they're not moving at all? And I don't know. I presume that if they were moving on, for example, Georgia, that we would have heard about it by now, because while the department policy is not to disclose what they're doing in terms of a pending investigation, when they convene a grand jury and they bring people before a grand jury, the witnesses before the grand jury aren't sworn to secrecy. And a lot of reporters will stake out the courthouse and they'll see who's coming and who's going. And it's hard to keep that quiet for very long. So I suspect it's just not happening. And so the problem isn't delay. The problem is deny that it's not happening. But I think in terms of our work, although it may not seem that way, we have been moving with remarkable speed. And the courts, when Trump has sued us to stop the archives from giving us documents, for example, the courts have moved really fast, which is even more unusual. That we could get an answer from the Supreme Court in a matter of months in a case of national significance is pretty darn amazing.
So Gryby has a question, again, sort of about pacing and what we can do as, citizens and voters.
Is that me, Kurt? Sorry.
What's that?
Yeah. Hi, Representative Schiff. I've been noting that, there are a few people who have just elected not to comply with congressional subpoenas. And my understanding is that Congress itself doesn't have a really great mechanism for enforcement of those subpoenas because, that would probably require a group effort, which the Republicans are not interested in doing. I'm just wondering, is there anything that we can do as citizens to put pressure on, some kind of mechanism to basically comply with the law? I get very concerned when people are basically can not comply with subpoenas, and then they just kind of get away with it. So what can we as citizens do to back up the people who need us to do that right now? Thank you.
Yeah, well, believe me, I understand the frustration. And I would put the witnesses in a few different categories. First of all, the good news is the vast majority of people are cooperating. So that's positive. There are some very key people who are not, however, that have very important information. We've referred a couple of them for criminal prosecution. One is being prosecuted, Steve Bannon. The other, we're still waiting to hear what the Justice Department is doing with Meadows, and we hope that they will indict Meadows as well. There are others who are coming before the committee, and I cannot identify them by name for reasons you can appreciate, who are taking the fifth and responding to just about every question with an assertion of the fifth. Now, there's not much that can be done about that either. They have a constitutional right to take the fifth if they believe that their answers would potentially implicate them in criminal activity for which they could be prosecuted. There's another category, though, and that is members of Congress, i.e. McCarthy, Jordan, Perry, who have simply refused. Now, they have not yet been subpoenaed. And part of what the committee is going to be deliberating on, I think as soon as this week, is what are the next steps with the members who are refusing to cooperate? Some of them said they would earlier, like Jordan and McCarthy, and now, of course, they're towing the Trumpian obstructionist line. And so the options are a subpoena. But then once you subpoena them, then you have to be prepared to fall through. What if they refuse to comply with a subpoena? Are we going to refer our colleagues for criminal prosecution? Are we going to use some of the mechanisms we have in-house to deal with members who violate their responsibilities to the House? And I would certainly view being willing to testify when called upon about an attack on the Capitol as being something that is within their responsibilities as a member of that body. So there are remedies for how we can treat our own members without having to refer them to another branch of government. We haven't reached a decision about that. Obviously, it's a pretty fraught question. The relationship between members is at a pretty low ebb in our history as it is. So we're trying to work our way through those really tough issues.
And I'm going to go to.
I'm sorry. And in terms of what you can do, I think that holding people accountable, like these Republican members who refuse to testify, is probably about the only thing that can be done at a grassroots level. Now, I realize some, like McCarthy, are in very Republican districts, and as a result of redistricting, in even more Republican districts than they were before. Others, that may not be as much the case. And even so, they have editorial boards. They're concerned about their reputation in their districts, and to the degree that you all can weigh in with those that you know who live in their districts to weigh in, that can have a subtle pressure on these members. It may not be enough, but it'll be enough to get their attention and add to the pressure.
So a brief intermission from pure politics. I want to toss a question to Mom Sense on a more personal question, observation regarding the book. Take it away.
Before Mom Sense jumps in, can I just say, Patrick texted me and said you have a hard stop at 8:30. Is that correct?
I do. I mean, we can go a minute or two over, but I do have to get ready for my next Zoom obligation.
Okay,
It's
so we have
8:30.
3 minutes. So
So
Mom
a few of us listened to the audio version of the book. You did a great job, by the way. And we fell in love with your dad. And now when I'm yelling at my radio or my TV, I often find myself saying, he's a liar and he's a liar. And we wanted your dad to know that so he doesn't get kicked out of his club, he can always come hang out with us on Balloon Juice, where we let the F-bombs fly a little bit on our blog. If he has stuff to get out of his system, we'd love to have him join us.
So, thank you very much for that comment. I will give you an extra that's not included in the book. I believe, because I don't think I told the full story, although I told part of the story of when he got into that argument with the guy at the club who he called an asshole for wanting to put on Fox. When he got hauled up before the board, did I tell you about what his defenses were to the board? I don't think I had room in the book. My book was already too long as it is, so my editor made me cut a bunch of stuff out of it. So my father gets hauled up before the board of his club for using an obscenity, for calling this guy an asshole at the club. And my dad tells me that he mounted a vigorous defense, self-defense, first by saying, his first defense was considerably stronger than his second. His first defense was that his mother always told him that if it was an obscenity, it was not in the dictionary. And if you look in the dictionary, you will find the word asshole. And therefore, he was not using an obscenity, and therefore he did not violate the rules of the club. And that was his first defense. And I thought that's really quite clever.
He's one of us. We love him. He needs to come hang out with us.
His second defense wasn't quite as strong. His second defense was he had just watched a movie with Nick Nolte in which he was given custody of a 9-year-old child, and he kept using the word asshole, so it couldn't be that bad.
Nick Nolte's a bad defense.
My favorite part, I think I did include the book, which is they told my dad, well, if we let you off with a warning, do you promise not to call someone an asshole at the club again? And my dad responded, well, I will do my best, but I'm not sure that I can give you an ironclad guarantee.
Only assholes are offended by the word asshole. So
That's right. That's right.
We love him.
Oh, thank you. I will let him know that.
Wonderful, thank you.
We tend to say things like Mar-a-Lago, go fuck yourself, and so we're
Well, I think I did relate. Someday I'm going to write a book of the tweets I didn't send, and I think the one that will be at the top of the list was when Trump first attacked me, sleazy Adam Schiff, blah 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 blah. I was on the House floor, and my colleague from California, Mike Thompson, said, Adam, you ought to tweet back at the president, Mr. President, when they go low, we go high, go fuck yourself. And I was sorely tempted, but Patrick wouldn't allow it.
new rotating tag.
trick. Yeah, right.
So Patrick gets to see your tweets before you send them, huh?
He does. Unlike the former president, have people actually make sure that I'm not committing political suicide with my Twitter impulses.
That's great. Well, thank you
So
so
I know
much
we're-
for spending all this time with us. And I'm sorry you have a hard stop.
Well, it really has been a pleasure to get to know you, and thanks once again for all that you're doing. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We're going to get through this, but I think what we do in this moment will have a big impact on how quickly we get through it, how much damage we have to suffer along the way. You probably saw the latest capitulation to the Trump GOP. It was Josh Hawley sending a letter to the president basically saying, well, why should we support Ukraine in NATO? But the broader context is, why should we support Ukraine? The party of Reagan has now become the party of Putin. And it's just a terrible tragedy how both at home and abroad, today's Republican Party just doesn't have any affection for democracy. And as long as that's the case, they're just going to have to be beaten at the polls. So we know what we have to do. I will say before I jump off that we have been fortunate in redistricting beyond what we thought possible. Redistricting we feared could be a crippling blow. As it turns out, it may be more of a wash, which would be quite remarkable. Now, that still gives Republicans an advantage, the advantage they held 10 years ago. But it does mean that the midterms will be more competitive than we thought, in a good way, that we still can hold on to the House. It's going to require the country be in a better place vis-a-vis the pandemic, which I think will be the case as we climb down from the Omicron surge. And as Omicron has crowded out more lethal mutations of the virus, and we hope that continues to be true. So I think we know what we have to do. We have to protect the right to vote. We have to make sure that the House is responsibly governed, and we'll get through this. And I really appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for your interest in the book. Really delight to talk with you about it. And let's not wait until I write another book to get together again, okay?
That would
Please.
be tremendous.
That'd be great.
We're there.
Thank you.
All right,
Anytime.
big round of applause.
Yeah, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A great rest of your evening.
Thanks,
I
everybody.
think everyone would say, anytime you'd like to talk to us, we'd be happy to talk to you.
Outstanding. Thank
sure.
you.
Honorary jackal.
Absolutely.
More than happy.
Yeah, you're a jackal. We call ourselves jackals, so. You're one
Take
of
care,
us.
everybody.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Ed.
next time we get together, I want to see a couple roll top desks out there, okay?
Only
I
if
always
you're
wanted to build one.
Okay, might get a miniature one.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now.
Thank you again.
Wow.
Let's make sure everybody's on.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're all still here.
Yes.
No, I mean,
Cool.
holy shit.
Wow.
Once again.
That was
Do you know
so
how
totally
exciting?
awesome.
Do you know how
Yeah.
exciting it was to hear him say "fuck"? I don't know why, but that was a highlight for me.
And then willing to come back without writing another book. That's awesome. We
That's,
did not repel him.
It is.
and,
We have an
and
impressive group of people, let's face it.
I gotta tell you, I so love that Adam Schiff came on and dropped an F-bomb and didn't blink.
Well, he likes to go on Pod Save America where every fifth word is Spock.
Oh,
And we probably disappointed him last week because we were so, no, not really. We were so well behaved.
oh, we were so polite.
No. We're talking to a U.S. congressperson. We got to be on our party behavior.
Right.
But
So
when
Kurt
they had-
said last night that he thought the fact that they were willing to throw this more open this week was kind of a compliment in a way that they felt after last week that we could be trusted with that,
You're running.
But did anyone else think when he said he had to he had another Zoom, did anyone else want to say, are you cheating on us with another book club?
Funny,
You know,
I think we need to add
I
his,
wanted
the
to say they
party.
can't be nearly as much fun.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking we need to add a rotating tag of his, the party of Reagan has become the party of Putin.
I
Mhm.
wrote that, I
Upset.
wrote that down. It's a good one.
Yes.
There were a
By the way,
couple of
where-
really good ones.
Where did the jackals come from?
Mom Sense, thank you for the dad thing. I think he lit up when
Yes.
you asked that question. And also, thanks